Hi everyone, I'm Barnaby and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to paint fill a golf club. If you're watching this video near the time of publishing, you're probably locked inside due to the coronavirus and can't get out on the golf course. If you follow Callaway's legendary club artist Anthony Taranto on Instagram, you'll probably see he gets asked hundreds of times a week, how does he paint fill the clubs and what paint does he use? Today I'm going to show you that you don't need any fancy equipment and you can pretty much paint fill your golf clubs with things you have around the house. So the first thing you're going to need is the paint. I use the Tamiya clear enamel paint. I've had the best results with this. This is definitely not what Anthony Taranto uses, but he doesn't know what he's using, to be fair, and this works perfectly well. If you don't have the paint at home, that's totally fine. If you can just grab some nail polish, you can also use that too. It won't be as durable as the Tamiya paint, but if you're just looking for something to do, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So you might have seen online before, a lot of people use these fancy paint fill bottles. Personally, I don't think you really need them and you can just use regular toothpicks. So the next thing you're going to need is something to clean up the paint at the end. Ideally you would use acetone for this. If you don't have this at home, however, you can use nail polish remover and that works perfectly fine. So the next thing you're going to need is something to apply the acetone to. Ideally you would use a lint-free cloth, but not everyone has access to these. You can use either a cotton pad, a Q-tip, or a coffee filter. Coffee filters are supposedly the best because they are totally lint-free. The cotton pads and the Q-tips do work, but it's a lot messier and a lot more work. But if you're just stuck at home, again, this will be totally fine. So the final thing you're going to need is the golf club that you want to paint fill. Today I'm going to be using my old SM7 Vokey wedge. This used to have a brushed steel finish on it, but I've actually removed the finish and made the wedge raw. If you're interested in knowing how I made this wedge raw, leave a comment down below and I'll make a video and show you the process as well. Ideally, before you start, you want to remove all the paint fill from the wedge. You can do this by using acetone and scratching the paint out with a needle or a toothpick. At the same time, if you just can't be bothered, the paint will go over the top and in most cases it looks fine. Just try and make sure you're not putting a light colour over a dark colour. Often with the Vokey wedges, you have a lot of white paint fill anyway, so coloured paint goes straight over that, no problem. So now you've got all the things together, we can start applying the paint fill to the wedge. It's a pretty easy process, to be honest. All you need to do is get a toothpick and put the paint over the areas that you want to cover. At first this will look a little messy, but once it dries off a bit, maybe after 10 to 15 minutes, you can soak the coffee filter in acetone and just wipe it away. For an absolutely perfect finish, you want to let the paint dry for maybe 2 hours to 5 hours and then go over it again and touch it up. This isn't always necessary, it really depends on the club, the surface and how much prep you've done. Okay, so now you've got everything you need, the first step is to cover the areas that you want to paint with the toothpick and the paint. What I do is I pour a little bit of paint into the cap to use as my palette. Once you've done that, you just want to get your toothpick and dip it in the paint a little bit and then start filling the areas of the club in. You don't want to use too much paint and you want to try and get it as best as you can within the lines, but you will go over. This is completely fine because we will be wiping off the excess paint later. You just want to do as best you can, but also you want to move quickly. That way when you go to wipe it off, you don't have any areas that have too little paint. Once you've finished applying the paint, what you want to do is you want to get your coffee filter and your acetone and you want to wipe away the excess paint, making sure that you're always wiping in one direction. You're also going to want to make sure you get the straightest edge possible. When you're ready to go, just apply the acetone to the coffee filter. You also want to make sure you're doing this over a towel or a metallic surface because if it goes onto a plastic countertop, it will start to melt it. You want to make sure here that you just take clean, even sweeps and apply a firm but even pressure. Okay, so that's actually worked pretty well and most of it's come off. Now what you want to do is you want to let this dry and then come back to it in maybe 15 minutes or an hour, or if you can wait overnight. What you want to do is do a touch-up to remove the excess paint. You might notice as well, there probably is a bit of discoloration around this area of the club as well. It's not a problem, you can remove it later. The one thing to note, however, if you are doing this on one of the jet black Vokeys, I have done this in the past and I did take a bit of the finish off. So keep that in mind and try and keep the acetone as close to the paintfill area as possible. Okay, now it's dried, we're going to come back and touch it up. And this is where you've got a few options. You can either use the same coffee filter you were using before, or you can use a Q-tip or one of the cotton pads. Personally, I prefer to use the coffee filter and the Q-tips, but some people like cotton pads. What we're wanting to do here now is remove all of the excess paint that's been left on the club. Here you can be a bit more delicate and work on the areas where you've gone over the edges too much. You don't need to be so one-directional either. The other thing I will show you as well is what people do is they use the Q-tip and they will rub like this to get rid of the paint. It's just not always necessary. It just depends on your personal preference and a bit of trial and error. Alright, so that's it, we're finished now. If you do find in the days to come that you see there's a little bit still left on there, you can just repeat the same process again. Okay, so here's the finished result. It is a bit subtle, but that's just due to the paint color I chose. I only have the blue paint at home at the moment because I was thinking about doing this on my Scotty Cameron putter. So if I was doing this myself and choosing it, I would probably pick a bolder color to use, but the method remains exactly the same. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and that you're all staying safe at home. If you're like me, you might be going a little bit stir crazy, you don't have anywhere you can practice anything but putting. So hopefully this activity gives you something fun and golf related to do at home. And you might get some pimped out wedges as well, which is just a bonus. If you've enjoyed this video, please remember, subscribe to the channel and give this a thumbs up. And don't forget to share the video with your friends who are also stuck at home as well. Everyone's looking for something to do at the moment, so any little bit of content helps, not just my own. Thanks for watching.